3rd of October 25, and Calamity Keir stammers at it again. He made his speech on Tuesday or whatever at the Labour conference, and he came up with a story that how he had seen how some native Brits, I suppose you would call them, are a bit anxious about the way Labour and Tory have decided to change the country since 1948. Although they never really, it just sort of happened, and then once it became really obvious, they either they've went right along with it. In the end, they did sort of go along with it, Labour and Tories. It's only recently it's changing a bit because of reform, really, and more so advance UK. But anyway, he gave this story of how it came to see how, I suppose you could say, native Brits might be anxious about this. You could put it a bit of a understatement, but yeah, but it turns out that really the story he gave an anecdotal story with a lady from Oldham, uh, and but she's come out, she's done the worst thing to him. She's come out and said that he's not told the story correctly, and he's sort of lying and he's using it in the wrong way. So it's making him look even worse again. And this is from the guy who was the head of the criminal prosecution service in England, and now he's a prime minister. I mean, personally, I find him sinister. He's the only prime minister I've disliked. Because he always gets wrong, and here he's got it wrong again. Because he thought this lady wouldn't say anything. She's done the worst thing that a lady could do. She's given her side of the story. He maybe never thought that would happen. But really, to me, it should be. He should honourably resign, because he's former head of criminal prosecution. He's told a lie in this very important story for the country, even though it's not legally, criminally a crime, but in terms of morality, it's just, I don't know. But there's no chance of him resigning, because even the Labour Party want him to go as well, the MPs especially. Yeah, so, yeah, because he used her to show how basically British natives were a bit upset. I think that's his case. Credits her with sparking his realisation that the left had got it wrong on immigration. And this is, I think, 2015, when he was just becoming an MP, and it was the election campaign or something, but he was doing stuff in Oldham even though he was a London MP. Or it was either that or 2017. I think it was 2015. His anecdote about meeting retiree Joyce Dodd became the centrepiece of his leader's speech at the Labour's party conference. So it is little short of extraordinary that Mrs. Todd's recollection of their 2015 meeting during canvassing in Oldham is so different to that of the Prime Minister's. This is the Daily Mail. They got an exclusive with her today. She made a comment yesterday, I think, to the Manchester Evening Telegraph, and today the Daily Mail have got an exclusive. Because she insists that the meeting was actually so fraught that it lasted less than 15 minutes before she demanded that he got out of her house because he accused her of being a racist. So that's not very, doesn't sound the way the Keir told it, so, yeah. From the big questions around immigration down to trivial details such as whether or not she served him rich tea biscuits, 79-year-old Joyce is unequivocal. Yeah, because she didn't give him rich tea biscuits. Keir Starmer is a liar, she insisted in an exclusive interview. He still doesn't get it. Mrs. Todd's elevation to the national stage, which took her by surprise, came after Sir Keir told the story on Tuesday of how an encounter with her 10 years ago had made him rethink the party's attitudes to the increasingly difficult question of immigration. Soon after I became an MP, I went to Oldham for a by-election up there. The PM recalled I was taken to a street to meet a woman who I was told had strong views on immigration. Okay, I see. So it was a by-election. I knocked on the door. And also, no, she invited me and we had a cup of tea and a rich tea biscuit, and as we sat there, she got her photo album out and showed me pictures. It is at this point that Mrs. Todd's recollection of what happened diverges from Sir Keir's. There was no rich tea biscuits, she told us, and there was certainly no looking through a photo album, so they didn't look through a photo album either. He was sat in one armchair, I was sat in another, and his staff were on the sofa, and we had a cup of tea, but there were no biscuits or photo albums. But Mrs. Todd's objections to Sir Keir's account are much graver when it moves on to more substantive matters. Because he said there were pictures of a wedding of her Asian neighbour. She was proud that she was her friend. I started thinking, what is going on here? Then we finally got to it, and she told me how some men from Eastern Europe had recently moved onto her street. They sat in her wall, didn't put their rubbish out in the right time, and spat on the ground. To her, that broke the little but important rules of her street. She didn't like it. This is what he said in his speech to the Labour conference. Then I realised what was really happening was that she was an ordinary working class woman. So she's not saying she's a R-word working class woman. She's ordinary. And I think he's implying that she's native British from Oldham, a Labour voter. And she felt that she had to prove to a Labour politician that she wasn't R-word because she could even bring up the issues before she could even bring up the issues in the community. And that's quite correct. Everyone's afraid of that, basically. But Mrs. Todd recalls a meeting in front of the room of her 130,000 terrace house unfolding differently. I don't know why he said I got my photo album out and showed him pictures of me at an Asian wedding, because I didn't. And she told how the meeting culminated in her being insulted over her views on immigration. Mrs. Todd, a retired trade journalist, explained how she came to meet Sir Keir, who had been elected an MP the previous year. She said, I was on a panel called The New Deal for Communities, and the council thought it would be worth him meeting me, as I have very forthright views. So there you go. I'm certainly not the R word, but that's what he accused me of during our chat. I told him we had a problem on the street with Eastern European men spitting and just making a nuisance of themselves. I told him about these issues, and he said, Mrs. Todd, I think you could be R word. And to me, that's just comical that he would even say that, you know. I mean, I think, or you could be. Not that you shouldn't even be saying it, you know. And they're Eastern European men, so I'm guessing they're probably, you know, white. So race doesn't even, colour doesn't even come into it, you know. I suppose you're race, you're going on a different thing. So it's just comical all around if it wasn't so rude and tactless of him. And again, he's told a lie in the conference. She told him no, I wasn't, and that I had Asian friends and I had been to lots of Asian weddings and events, and we buy Christmas presents for Asian children. So she was really offended. She has awards for helping out in the local community. She has Asian friends coming to me asking her for help with problems like sorting out their bills and bank statements. So if I was R-word, would I do that? She said, that's not right at all, and if that's how you feel, you can leave my house now. And they did. They can't have been there for more than 15 minutes. Sir Keir did not identify Mrs. Todd by name in her speech, but local reporters recollected this stage meeting. She told us, when I saw the news, I realised immediately the Prime Minister was talking about his visit to my house for the by-election. Mrs. Todd is less concerned by the attention that has been thrust on her than the number of inaccuracies she says were included in his conference address. His recollection of the visit was very different, and I'm disappointed that he has mangled the reality of what took place. So it looks like maybe when she said she'd been to Asian weddings and stuff, he's added that bit about the photo album and stuff. I don't know. You'll need to ask him, really. If you can't trust him to tell the truth about coming to my house for a 15-minute chat, then how can you trust him in policies? Yeah, I mean, I think he's flawed, a very flawed character, you know. That really upsets me because I have been Labour all my life. I even voted Labour last time when Sir Keir was elected PM last July, so she voted for him. But not anymore, never again. Mrs. Todd, who spoke to the Daily Mail from the same tidy sitting room. Labour are dragging the country down into a state of disrepair, and I can't see how we are going to get out of it. We're a laughing stock of the world when it comes to illegal migration. We are just letting too many people into the country when everywhere else would send them back, no messing. The section of Sir Keir's speech about the meeting included, "I carried that memory of the meeting with me through all the bad years." And what does he mean by bad years? Does he mean the Jeremy Corbyn years when they got their highest vote for this century in 2017, and in 2019 when they get more votes than Keir Starmer got in 2024? I guess that's what he means. "We're a party that patronise working people, and that is why we changed the party." Oh, okay. It's not worked really out well now. If only Mrs Todd hadn't spoken to the press. That's where it's fallen down, you know. How dare she? But Mrs Todd believes she and others like her are still being patronised on migration. "I don't have any problem with people with blah blah blah. But the majority of people on these boats are young men who are just here for one thing, benefits. And that's what ordinary folk are finding frustrating, while they're struggling with the cost of living." When asked how she would vote in the next election, without hesitation, reform, no question. Regardless of what the Prime Minister has said about Nigel Farage, a lot of people around here will do the same, including the Asians who have been here a long time, and that's true, I think. When asked what she thought of Sir Keir's pledge of stopping the boats of smashing gangs, she said, "What has he actually done? It's got worse. If you speak out, you get called the R word, but that's not true. You just have a legitimate concern about what's happening to the country. How many countries are these people going through before they get here? Loads, but they all can't want to come to Britain because they see us as a land of milk and honey." The episode is a reminder of when previous Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown was caught on a mic describing a voter who expressed concerns about migration. A bigoted woman, yeah, I remember that. And I think she voted Brexit long term, and maybe even UKIP, I'm not sure. Well, the Brexit Party, maybe. I don't know, actually. Mrs Todd, who was born in Oldham, bought her house with husband Norman for £3,000 in 1979, and that was as soon as Mrs Thatcher started selling off the houses cheap, really. So she bought it in 79. I mean, Mrs Thatcher didn't come into May. She maybe put past that thing in, I don't know, October or something. So if they bought it in 79, they bought the house straight away, so they were straight on to the Tory council house giveaway, you know. To me, it's not the fact that you could buy a council house. I think you could. It's that they weren't giving it as at the asking price. It was like 20% of the asking price. So back then it was a lovely street. You knew all your neighbours from one end to the other. The family next door were Indian. They moved to London years ago, but we are still in touch. It's only in the past 10 years or so that things have really changed. Mrs Todd added, "It's us ordinary folk who have to put up with this, and the issue is the new arrivals don't want to integrate and become part of our culture." And I told him that 10 years ago. Yeah. So there you go, he's been caught out again. I mean, really, I think he should do the honourable thing and resign, but of course he won't. And it's just shocking how he's made up. And he was relying on this woman not telling her story to the press. Maybe he thought she'd be too stressed out, or, you know, but he's picked the wrong woman, really. And so, once again, it's just terrible, really is. Anyway, that's all for just now. Bye bye.